All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today I'll be doing my preview and prediction for Penn State versus Michigan. Top 10 matchup in the Big Ten this weekend. Wolverines are 7-point favorites. The over-under is 51. 12 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox is the site of this contest. Michigan leads the series all-time 15-10, and Ann Arbor will be the site of this one. Looking at the Penn State offense, it's been a nice little attack this year for Sean Clifford and the Nittany Lions, 34.4 points per contest for them. Clifford, he's been a little inconsistent to start the year. Complete about 62%, 9 touchdowns, a little over 1,000 yards through the air. He's got 2 picks. Does have 4 touchdowns on the ground. It's been a little bit of the same with Clifford. You saw it against Purdue. He did have 4 touchdowns, but he completed, a little north of 50%. A handful of mistakes in that game. Did lead a nice drive downfield, to win that game. But, overall, it's been the same with Clifford, over his 5 years as a starter now. Just very inconsistent play. Sometimes the inaccuracy shows. Last week, 10 of 20, only 140. He had a pick against Northwestern in the game. They had 5 turnovers in. Only scored 17 points. Clifford is the catalyst of this offense as a senior, but he's gotten some great production out of his freshman backs, Nicholas Singleton, Keytron Allen. Singleton, 463 yards and 5 touchdowns, averaging 7.3 yards per carry, 5.3 per touch for Allen. He's also got 3 touchdowns. 192 yards per game on the ground so far for Penn State. They had a terrible running attack last year, so this is nice to see them kind of get in groove. 245 was a season high for this team against Auburn. He also had 5 touchdowns. They're running all over them. We'll see if that continues as they enter conference play, because they only had about 98 yards against Purdue and Northwestern. They had 220. They only averaged about 3.8 yards per carry, though. A lot of touches in that contest. This, offensive line is going to be a big story of it, though. I think they played pretty well to start the season, but, it's really a mix of, some veterans like Caden Wallace and then some young guys like Landon Tagwell. Juice Scruggs, another one of those veterans, So offensive line is an interesting bunch, but I do think they've, started off the year quite well. Big test here against this Michigan offense, or defensive line, rather. This offense does have the luxury of having a pretty respectable receiving core. I like Parker Washington, a nice guy. They get involved in the middle of the field, underneath in the slot. 20 grabs, 285 yards on the season for him. No touchdowns yet, but Brenton Strange has found the end zone 4 times. He's really stepping up at tight end. He had a big touchdown in that Purdue game. 6'3", 247. I like Strange there at tight end, really stepping up. Mitchell Tinsley, 19 receptions, 225 yards. And then Keandre Lambert-Smith, he's a big play guy. Not gotten involved much this year. Only 9 grabs, 104 yards. But, those are the 4 guys that are really going to be, getting involved here. Tyler Warren has a handful of receptions. But for the most part, the 4 names that you see above, those are going to be the guys that lead this offense, against the tough Michigan defense that's did pretty well this year. It's going to be an interesting matchup for them if they can block up front. I think that's going to be big for them against the zone coverage. Clifford will have time to, find some guys. And if he's accurate, he'll do pretty well. But running the ball, it's certainly going to be a challenge in this contest against Michigan. But that's where they want to start, and that's where they want to end with their offense, is just running the football with these 2 freshmen. And Kevon Lee as well. I don't know if he's healthy or not, but he hasn't been very productive anyways this season. It's a pretty deep backfield, though. And, Clifford, he's very helpful on the ground with his legs also. So this is a very good offense when they're clicking. But for the most part, they've been a little, inconsistent to start the year. Looking at the Michigan offense, J.J. McCarthy, due to an injury to Cade McNamara, he was going to get the starting job anyways. He's now the full-time starter, though. 78% completion rate for him. 1,152 yards, 9 touchdowns, does have 1 pick. He's been very calm, cool, collected. His biggest problem, I'd say, is just, trying to make, too many plays at times, and it leads to sacks, negative plays for the offense. But overall, he's been very accurate with the football, been very decisive with what he wants to go. Thought they did a good job throwing it to the perimeter against Indiana and Iowa. Maryland, he had 220 and 2 touchdowns, even though the offense kind of stalled out because of the passing game, late in that game. Didn't really seem to be clicking like it was early. But I do like McCarthy, very talented football player. He's a dual threat guy, can make plays with his legs. He's got a nice group of receivers to throw it to. Ronnie Bell coming back did wonders for this offense. 30 receptions, 390 yards, team highs there. Luke Schoonmaker, 23 grabs at tight end. He's been a highly targeted player for them. I like Schoonmaker. Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson. Johnson, he's 4th on the team right now, and he led the team last year in receptions and yards, I believe. 6'3", 208. He's kind of their jump ball guy they use in the end zone. Biggest story of this offense, though, Blake Corum. He's, having a Heisman-like season so far. 735 yards, 11 touchdowns. Donovan Edwards, he's a dual threat, versatile back. Will get involved as well. But it's really going to be the Corum show. 118 attempts already, about 20 touches per contest. He's getting a lot of looks, but, he's so good at finding these holes, finding the creases. He can also bounce it out to the edge and take it for a home run. He has phenomenal vision, can fit through those gaps. I love Blake Corum, behind a tremendous offensive line. Now, they're a little beat up, but, they've taken a little bit of a step back compared to last year. But Victor Oluwamadi, At center, he's doing great things for them. I like Trevor Keegan, who's a veteran. Ryan Hayes coming off a big week. He made the PFF top team. Zach Zenter as well. Trente Jones, I know he got injured that game against Indiana. I'm pretty sure they're going to have their full lineup here in this game. I've not seen otherwise. But that's going to be the story for them. They ran the ball pretty well last year against Penn State. It was nothing too spectacular. It was just enough to get by. Michigan offense, it's a very good unit. It's versatile so far. They've not really had that big test. This is going to be it for them. They're facing a tremendous secondary of Penn State's as well. But I think this offense, they have the personnel to succeed. They have the quarterback who's incredibly talented. And, of course, that backfield is just completely nasty with Corum. So Michigan's offense, I think they have a big edge in this game. It's certainly going to be a unit that leads the way. And I think they're going to continue to progress and be better than they were last year where, they're running all over opponents. Looking at that Penn State defense, allowing just under 15 points per game, 342 yards per game. They're 102nd ranked pass defense, which I think is kind of skewed. They give up some yards, but, they lead the nation in opponent passing attempts allowed per game. Teams are throwing about 45 attempts per contest on this defense, and they rank third in opponent completion rate, 49.6%. That's, pretty elite work. Joey Porter leads the way. He's got 10 pass breakups so far this year. He was expected to be one of the top cornerbacks in the nation. He's doing that so far, 17 tackles to go along with that. Just tremendous work. They love to leave him on, one-on-one. He did have 6 of those pass breakups against Purdue. He had a phenomenal showing in week 1. Last 2 weeks, though, he's really starting to come into his own once more. Phenomenal secondary. You look at Jair Brown. He had 5 picks last year for them. He's the leading tackler, 25 stops right now, 2 picks, 2.5 tackle for loss. He really gets, into the backfield. He makes a lot of tackles. This is a guy that's a tremendous playmaker for this defense. And the biggest thing to watch, though, is how will they do against the run? Because last year, I thought it was a pretty respectable effort. But, this is a very young front seven. It's led to guys like Abdul Carter having to step up. They have a 5-star freshman as well on the defensive line. This is just a unit that's really going to be tested in this game. Danny Dennis Sutton, 3 tackle for a loss, coming in making an immediate impact. 3 of those, 3 sacks. They're really going to lean on him. He's getting involved more over the past couple of weeks. These are guys that are going to have to step up because I think this is a part of the unit that might get exposed just because they're young. They don't have, guys fully filled out into their frames. Isaac, 6'4", 243, coming off the edge. I don't really see where the pass rush is going to come from here. They don't have many threats that come off the edge. They'll make a lot of plays for you. They do have 12 sacks on the year, so that's certainly encouraging. But 6 of those came against Auburn in a game. They just completely, bushwhacked the Tigers. That's good, an SEC opponent. But for the most part, this has been an inconsistent pass rush. It's going to be interesting to see who can step up. Maybe Chop Robinson's one of those guys they'll look to. I think they've been very good this year in stopping the run. Some pretty impressive numbers there. Curtis Jacobs and P.J. Mustipher. Those are the most notable guys that I talked about a lot in this offseason. Mustipher, when he went down last year, the run defense just kind of really fell apart towards the back half of the year. But so far, they've been pretty good. 119 yards allowed against Auburn is the season high they have allowed so far. And that's a really good mark, especially against that backfield. Northwestern, they held them in check. 28 attempts, 31 yards. That's just elite work right there. But, they're going to have a big challenge here against Corum in this offensive line. I think this might be an opportunity to kind of expose this, defensive front of Penn State. Last year, 144 yards allowed to the Wolverines. That's a pretty good mark. They were certainly bouncing back there at that part in the year. It's going to be an interesting game for Penn State. I love the secondary. I think they're really good, but if they can't stop the run up front, which I think is highly likely, then they could be in for a long day. So it's going to be interesting to see what Penn State does. But that's where it's going to start for them, is slowing down that run. Because, if McCarthy can get some great work out of his backfield, then he's going to be able to win off play action on the perimeter. I do expect that to happen because the secondary has given up some yards, but they're tremendous at playmaking. So we'll see which part of the unit prevails. Look at the Michigan defense, 5th allowed in FBS in yards per game, 247. You look at the other numbers, they're top 10 in most categories. Of course, they've not really played too many tough opponents. Indiana had, a few scoring drives in that first half. Maryland, they had some success as well. But overall, it's been a pretty good start to the year for Jesse Minter's unit. Still playing a lot of zone coverage. And, guys like German Green, RJ Moe, it kind of allows these guys to thrive. It's, a mixed bag in the secondary, mainly a bunch of veterans, though. You look at DJ Turner as well at the other cornerback position. Facing a very good receiving core. So it's going to be, up to these guys to make plays in the back end. I think both teams, they're going to want to win the line of scrimmage. This is the Big Ten. Both teams are going to want to look to run the ball, and they're both very good at doing so. Michigan, look at guys like Mike Morris, Jalen Harrell, 2 names I mentioned a lot in the offseason. Morris right now, 7 tackle for loss, 5 sacks. He's really stepping up, coming into his own here off the edge. Mozzie Smith, one of the lone returning starters on this defensive line from last year, 6'3", 337, just a complete run stuffer in the middle for them. This is a really good defense, at least how they've played so far. Michael Barrett stepping up at that other linebacking position next to, Junior Colson, who has 44 stops on the year. Mike Sandstrill he's made that full-time conversion over to the slot. This is a really good defense. I think that they're going to want to stop the run because they don't want to get beat in the back end. They gave up 19 yards on only 25 attempts against Indiana, 35 yards against Iowa. I mean, this is just ridiculous stuff from this defense right now, what they're able to do against the run and how they're able to get into the backfield. Again, this might be an opportunity where they can get exposed. So it's really a big game for both teams because you're really going to find out what you want to here. But right now, Michigan, they're just dominating on the ground. They're not giving up anything one bit. I think this is a unit that's really going to have success in this game. I believe they lead the nation in sacks. They do have 22 of them. If not, they're top 3 in that category for sure. They're getting a lot of production from a lot of different guys. Iabi, Oki, and then Derek Moore, a freshman. They're getting a lot of production from these guys, and I expect that to continue. I think this is a good opportunity for this defensive line to shine, though. Looking at team comparisons, I really give the Michigan Wolverines the edge in almost everything. The secondary for Penn State, I'm going to give them the edge. I do think Michigan's is pretty talented, but, it's pretty straight shot when you compare these rosters head-to-head. Michigan, I think, has the edge in every single category at this moment in time. You look at quarterback J.J. McCarthy, I think he's better than Sean Clifford. Clifford, over his 5 years, it seems to kind of be the same thing. His ceiling seems to have already been maxed out. I do think Mike Yurcich is doing some good things with him. If they can win on the perimeter, then, it's going to be a great way to get this offense going. But I don't expect Clifford to, walk into Ann Arbor and just win this game alone. The running backs, they're really good, but Blake Corum, probably the top back in college football right now. Wide receiver group, I really like Penn State's, but Michigan's, they're just a little bit deeper, it seems, especially when Eric All comes back. Schoonmaker's been stepping up. Whenever All comes back, it's only going to make it even better. I'm not sure if he'll play in this game. Offensive line, I think, is pretty unanimous there. They picked the Wolverines. Defensive front as well. And then linebacking core, they just don't have a lot of depth or size of that position. They've had to lean on a freshman and Carter to step up for him. So in Michigan, they got some veterans there that are making plays like Michael Barrett next to Junior Colson. So team comparison's pretty simple for me. I have Michigan with the edge in almost all of them. Keys to the game, final thoughts on the prediction here. Penn State, slow down Blake Corum, make a young quarterback test a great secondary. I think that's the biggest way for them to win is, slow down that great offensive line, that running game. I think they did a pretty solid job of it last year. A lot of hard-earned yards for that, backfield. Make McCarthy make plays here. He is at home, so that's certainly going to help him. But, this is a very talented secondary full of veterans. So Penn State, I think they have an edge there. I think that's their best shot at winning this game. For Michigan, put frequent pressure on Clifford, manufacture that sustainable ground game that we were talking about. I think Michigan's going to win this one pretty handily, 35-14. I'm not a big fan of the depth Penn State has in their front seven. I do like the secondary, but I do think the running game is going to get going a good bit. I think they're have about 170 yards rushing in this game, and I think the play action certainly going to eat them up on the perimeter. I do like the ability of Penn State secondary to make plays, though, so they could easily be giving up yards on the ground and make plays in the back end. They really swing it in their favor, but don't expect a big day from Sean Clifford. I think he'll make some mistakes, and I do think that pass rush for Michigan will make some waves. 35-14 for me. Michigan winning this one pretty handily. Should be an interesting game. Big-time opportunity. Learn a lot about both of these teams. So it's going to be one I'm certainly keying in on. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.